Wir werden jetzt einen Vortrag hören von Tanya Christensen. Sie ist von Microsoft und beschäftigt sich dort mit einem Umschwung, nämlich wie wir künftig oder möglicherweise schon heute arbeiten. Wenn man sie ein bisschen besucht, es gibt in der Friedrichstraße, oder nicht in der Friedrichstraße, unter den Linden gibt es in Berlin ein sehr schönes kleines Microsoft-Büro, nicht nur oben im Speicher, sondern es gibt auch eine kleine Eatery, also unten ein kleines Straßencafé, in dem man alle möglichen Gadgets ausprobieren kann. Und wenn man dort ein bisschen sitzt, dann kriegt man so eine andere Arbeitsatmosphäre. Man hat eigentlich keinen Bock mehr, zurück ins Büro zu gehen. Das geht nicht nur um die Geräte, sondern es geht vor allem um die Art und Weise, wie dort gearbeitet wird. Und wir haben mittlerweile sehr viele Situationen, wo wir merken, dass Startups entstehen in Beta-Häusern, in Coworking Spaces, dass wir mittlerweile unterwegs arbeiten können. Und die Frage, die uns natürlich auch rumtreibt, ist, was machen wir künftig, wenn die Autos von selber fahren? Haben wir dann 1,5 Stunden Zeit, von München bis nach Nürnberg im Auto zu arbeiten, so wie wir das heute in einem Zug tun? Und wie tun wir das? Und wie verändert sich unsere mobile Lebens- und Arbeitswelt? Dazu begrüße ich Tanya Christensen und du machst mir das war so ein bisschen, als hättest du gern noch mein Mikrofon, du kriegst ein eigenes, oder? Genau, kriegst noch eins. Yeah, super. Dann Bühne frei für Tanya Christensen von Microsoft. Herzlich willkommen.
Vielen Dank. I kindly asked if I could do this in English. I am practicing my German every day, 10 hours a day. However, on stage it's quite a different feel, moving in from Denmark just a year ago, but you are very, very welcome to ask me questions in German, and I can try and answer you back if I'm smart enough by now to do that. As mentioned, I moved here a year ago to join Microsoft Germany, and before that I was in Microsoft Denmark actually working in our Windows organization for some years, and before that I worked with digital marketing at Microsoft, but also prior to Microsoft even at the university in Leipzig for a short term. Now I have 20 minutes, so this is a short workshop. I do have some slides, but don't worry, I will try my best not to do PowerPoint by death. I'm sure many of you are familiar by the concept. However, the focus of Microsoft and of the Office division in which I work is really looking ahead, looking at the future, and looking at how we connect the trends in the world into the bigger picture. Looking generally at how IT is moving, we're looking at 5 trends. Had I been on stage 6 months ago, we would have done a deep dive in each of these trends. That is, however, not the focus of today, rather than looking ahead at what's connecting those trends. But I'm sure these are all very, very interesting. On a separate level, I've actually spent quite a lot of time talking about big data, talking about social, how it's all connected. But really, today, the world is a network, and it's simply putting another kind of pressure on how we work and how we enforce productivity at work. Now, productivity is obviously very, very central to Microsoft. It's central for us to enable people to be their best. That's the core at Microsoft. That's how we started, putting a PC on every desk. That was the central message 40 years ago. And today the message is very, very similar, but really about empowering people and making people the best, giving them the tools that enable them to be better at what they do. Just going back, work is also changing. Non-routine work is imminently on the rise. Germany has a very, very strong workforce of information workers, and the old school thought about, well, I go in, I tick in at 8 or 9 o'clock and I go home at 5 or 6 o'clock, is just not working for most of us anymore. I'm sure many of you are in the creative industry, and I'm sure you have your own work-life balance and how you deal with it, but this is really one of the topics we're trying to enforce by talking about the workplace of the future and really bringing in the dots about how the web-enabled, the internet-enabled world is changing how we can work and how we are productive. I was a little bit scared at first when I moved to Germany, because I heard some rumors that Germans work very, very long hours, and that you are very strict when it comes to checking in at 9 and then checking out preferably at 7 in the evening. And obviously, part of that is true. I see that Denmark is maybe a little bit more lean. People leave earlier at work. People have to pick up their kids, they have to do sports, and there's much more openness about the fact that, hey, it's 4 o'clock, it's late, I'm tired, I'm going to do some sports, so I'm going to spend some time with my kids, and then I can finish work tonight. For many, many companies, this is a reality. This is also a reality at Microsoft, also at Microsoft Germany, but it's not the general trend in Microsoft Germany outside of the creative sphere. There is still very much belief that being productive means sitting at your desk from 9 to 6. That's, however, not the case, and that's not the way the world is moving. Now, how many of you have heard about Internet of Things? It's sort of the big topic right now. I'm unfortunately not going to talk much about Internet of Things. I will mention to go on YouTube and find a small video. It's about 6 minutes long, that's called Connected Cows. Why is this important to Microsoft? Why is this important to Office? That's actually where I work now. Is because it really tells how even small companies can use the internet, the connectivity, to be more productive. Now, this video in detail goes in and basically tells about how a device strapped on the feet of the cow tells exactly how they produce more milk, when they get ill, what kind of rest they need, and also when you can breed with them. So really, for even a small farmer, using a service that connects via Azure to the cloud and sends back data makes them more productive, and in return makes them more profitable. Internet of Things is not something that is just for large companies and large enterprises. It's really a thing that's becoming reality. If you have been to Switzerland, you will have noticed that Nestle is selling a machine that produces baby milk. So that you have kids, that's kind of very easy. It's like a Nescafe machine, a coffee machine. You press a button and the milk, the formula gets produced. But really what's interesting about that machine, it's also connected to the internet. It sends back data to Nestle and says, you guys are running out of milk. That's not something you want to do with a small baby at home. So how about we send you the next bottles. So really, this is becoming reality to a lot of people and a lot of companies. And companies are changing. Companies are adapting really, really fast. The companies who are going to be here tomorrow are not necessarily the companies who are here today, because the world is moving much, much faster. Just looking at the Fortune 500 companies 60 years ago, most of them are gone. That's just a fact. Taylorism is a concept many of you read about at school. I'm mentioning this now because for me today it's very important to also take a step back with all that's going around, with all the trends in the internet. Basically, do we still want to live like this? Do we want to work like this 8-10 hours a day? I certainly do not. However, it's been the way offices have moved and looked for years and years. The concept of Taylorism was, of course, a little bit more control, making sure that each and every employee ticked in the exact amount of hours and did the exact amount of work. In the 50s, we moved a bit ahead with the design concept, but this was strictly at the manager's level. This was really not something that you saw on a broader scale. This, however, is a reality to many, many people still today. It's an old concept. It's not something we see in Germany because we have restriction. We're actually required to have daylight, which is quite nice. But this is really reality for many, many people in the US. And it is also still how many offices are built. Basically, you go in, you sit at your desk, you're productive, and then you go home and you have your day off. How many of you can actually honestly say that you don't work on your mobiles when you are technically off work or even on the weekends? I think very few of us. Also, one doesn't fit all. This goes for work just as much as many other programs. Now, Sean Ecker is an author that I would highly recommend reading. He is not affiliated with Microsoft in any way, so this is my personal recommendation. I read his book. I actually saw one of his speeches in the US, and I read his book. And the concept for me was then obviously, it was suddenly quite clear. Happy people are more productive. Now, Sean Ecker is at Harvard, and he's a researcher. He's an affiliate researcher at Harvard. And he went in and he looked at, do doctors who are happy actually have better results? Do people who are happily living actually live longer? One of the examples in his book mentions a study of nuns, where they basically asked them if they were positive, optimistic at life, or they were neutral or pessimistic at life. And then they went in 50 years later and looked at who of these nuns were still alive. And it turned out the ones that had been optimistic and positive about life lived longer. This is a concept that is really, really new, because studying happiness is not necessarily something that we see in every office. However, it's immensely important to make sure that the way we are productive at work is also enabling us and empowering us simply to perform better when we want to. And this is one of the core things in how Microsoft is changing, and how we are no longer only sending out a new product every 3 years. However, but instead sending out weekly updates, monthly, quarterly, and so on, because the world is evolving fast. The world is transforming, the world is changing. And it is a world where many of us think mobile first, and where many of us are connected to the cloud on one level or the other. It doesn't mean we're not going to send out what we call perpetual products every 3 years. It means that the core of our services are going to be updated much, much faster to enable you to, in return, develop faster solutions, and in return be quicker at adapting into this new transformation and new world. The minute a certain amount, statistically 16–18%, do something, it tends to flip and become normal. And this is one of the reasons why we, for the past year, from the Microsoft Office division in Germany, have been talking about this, have been trying to land the manifest of work. We've been working with McKinsey, we've been working with a number of researchers to look at Germany as a market, and to look at, okay, how is this all connected? We build software, some hardware too. I know my colleagues have some interesting products coming out later this year, moving into holographics and moving into wearables, which is of course also a theme. But from the Office division, we really think about how do we evolve a product that at its core was based on office work. The Office suite is an office suite. It was meant to take the space of the copywriter, of the printing machine, of the notebook, and so on. That's the Office suite. But today, the Office suite is becoming so much more. Modern students of today know this, and in 20 years, they're going to be the majority of workforce. And modern officers of today know this, because they are working on having this omnipresence, also working on design principles, enabling people to work how they want, when they want, with the tools that they need. connected to the cloud, connected to social networks, because really, instead of looking at each trend separately, from business intelligence to social media to cloud to devices to mobility and so on, we're trying to look at it as a giant network, and we're trying to see, okay, so people that are 20, 25 years old, they communicate not necessarily via text message or phone anymore, rather on social networks such as WhatsApp and so on. Email is still on the rise. Email is very, very central. I know email is always a discussion, but email is one of those things that is predicted. Today, about 100 billion emails are being sent off every day in the world, and in about 10 years, it's predicted to have reached 130 billion, so it is absolutely on the rise. We also have about 3 billion devices that are connected to the internet today. This is also a number that's on the rise. And with the Internet of Things, obviously, we're going to be connected in a way that is even more powerful and will far surpass, statistically, so says Gartner, the amount of PCs and mobile phones we have today, and maybe we won't even notice. However, the downside is we are overloaded by communication, we are overloaded by information, and one of the new focuses of Microsoft Office is really to help us control that, to put the power back at the people, to make it human. And that's also a trend you will hear from Satya Nadella, our new CEO, and that's a trend that we are all trying to push forward when we talk with our customers, when we talk with our partners. Remember the human aspect, because as technology gets more interconnected, as technology gets more powerful, it also becomes increasingly stressful for us to keep track of all these hundreds and thousands of emails and all of this information that's flowing around. That's one of the reasons why a product like personal assistants such as Cortana, I'm sure those of you who are gamers will know Cortana as a name from the Halo Xbox universe, but for us in the Office division and for Microsoft in general, it means that we will all benefit from having a personal assistant that is mine, where I control what kind of information she gets access to and who can in return help me. I know from Cortana today on my mobile phone that it will take me 1 hour and 35 minutes with current traffic to drive back to the office in Schwabing, and she will give me a reminder when it's time to leave in case there's a change in traffic situation. This is something very simple, but this is going to evolve. What kind of appointments do I have privately, personally, and how does it help me keep track of my day? It's also one of the reasons why a concept like business intelligence, a concept that was until very recently restricted practically to large enterprises who could manage this, is becoming more of a service, is moving down like products like Office Graph and Office Delve that basically enable us to keep track of our information and keep track of all the work and all the planning that we're doing. The modern workplace is becoming more personalized, it's becoming people-centric, and it's becoming omnipresent or ubiquitous, as it says on the slide. For Office, it means we have a lot of work ahead of us. When you go out and you visit a shop, you will still see the Office suite, but very rarely there will be a CD in the box. People today download the software from the internet to stay always connected, and we are still devoted to producing what we call on-premise software that you buy and you own, but the trend, the way the internet is requiring us to move faster really means that more and more is becoming cloud connected, and that we are developing at a very, very rapid speed. Some of these you see on the list are already out, some of them are coming. I'll try and move so you can actually see it. And universal apps is one of those things that we are enabling everyone who has a small device, a phone, to actually have access to Office. And as you have also heard in the press, we're going cross-platform. Office is no longer just for Windows, but also moving across platforms on Android devices, on iOS and so on, because we want to be where people are, and that also means our services will follow that. That will also make the lives of developers more easy to go cross-platform. I won't go into detail with this because that was not the concept of today. I will hope that the concept of having a workplace that is evolving, that is connected to the web, that enables and empowers people to work smarter from where they want and from whichever device they do, is at the key of Microsoft Office and is at the core of what Microsoft as a company wants to do. Now, questions, you're very, very welcome to email me on details. We can take a couple here. I know time-wise we were a little bit restricted because we were running behind, but I do believe I am on 19 minutes and 58 seconds.
Yeah, you did very well. Thank you.